All right, welcome to the New Year's Eve version of the PoliticIt Podcast. This is your host, Ryan Wilcox, here with the fabulous Sue Wilkerson. She's laughing. She's laughing. Okay, so I just went down, to start this one off, I just want to give you guys a little bit of an idea, and we'll let Sue introduce herself a little bit. But I just went down a list of all of the things. Okay, the list of things I knew that she was involved in Ogden, Weber County, was already pretty long. Like, we had plenty to talk about for this moment in time. And then we went down the list of things I didn't know for sure that she was involved in. Some of these I guess I knew, I just didn't think about. But it's absurd.
Surprise.
In a good way. So Sue, with that intro, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit?
Hi.
What do you want us to know?
That's a great question. I'm Sue Wilkerson. I've actually am not an Ogden native, and I have been here in Ogden since December of '99 was the first time I moved here. I was a brand new realtor with Coldwell Banker back in the day, and then I started my own brokerage in 2002 and haven't looked back. Currently, I am the broker owner of Remax Crossroads. We have a great historic mansion on the corner of 24th and Monroe that I dearly love. And I also am co-owner of the Lighthouse Lounge. And between those two things, I stay pretty busy along with my other things. 1,800 things, okay? So, and I know you mentioned, I've driven past that office property, a billion times and always thought how cool it was. I don't know why I've never asked for a tour, but I am now, I guess. I am happy to give tours. I love giving tours.
Yeah, it's just such a cool thing. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that and in the context of that, and I'll have a few other questions about it, I think.
I first leased space on 25th Street, and although 25th Street is great for social and restaurant and bar and shopping, it's just not the greatest place for office space because it is hard to park. It was hard to park in 2002, and it's hard to park today. So I ended up looking for an office space, and that building on 24th and Monroe, the Scowcroft Mansion, came up for sale. And I looked at it and thought, oh my gosh, I could never afford this. And then in one day it dropped $100,000 in price, and I went, oh my gosh, it's still a stretch. But I dove into it, and it was Paul Stockdale's law office, for those of you that remember Paul. He was an incredible man, a great attorney. Anyway, so Paul did the restoration of this building. It was originally built by Heber Scowcroft in 1908, and he had 9 children in the house. He married the first Pingree sister. She died in childbirth after the first 2 children, and then he married her twin sister. So the Scowcrofts and the Pingrees, the mansions are very similar. The Pingree Mansion's on the corner of 26th and Jefferson. And the 2 houses have a lot of similarities, so I'm assuming they use the same builder.
Same builder, same
Back
architect.
in the day. Yeah, they're a year apart.
Yeah.
So the mansion was divided, as many were in Ogden, into 9 apartments.
Oh, hate hearing that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Paul Stockdale was the one that basically converted it one by one back to just a single family office space.
Yeah.
And he really, I have to attribute him with saving the building because it was sort of scheduled for demolition at some point. I'm now finishing the 2 old apartments in the basement so that I can have sort of some more apartment space because we're pretty short on housing, in case you hadn't noticed.
Yeah, well, that is, something that I guess I didn't realize you got here as late as 1999. Talk about putting down roots, man. Okay, so the Scowcroft Mansion, I think, is one of those beautiful first ones that we saw really get rehabbed or restored, right? Yep. That's been a trend since then. There have been several that have recognized the sort of the error of our collective ways.
Correct. That is true.
You've been a huge part of the Jefferson District and the restoration projects there. What can you tell me about those projects? And really what I want to know is, and what I think our audience would be interested in is, why do you think it matters that we preserve that kind of history?
Oh, that's a great question. I've always liked historic homes. I go back as far as I can remember, even as a kid, and I just have this love of things that are old and cool.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of, it's intrinsic. I
Yeah.
don't know that there's a moment that I said, oh, I'm going to be a fan of historic houses. It just is sort of inside me. Jefferson was interesting. Back in 2002, the city started to recognize that street had some potential with all of the houses. Unfortunately, in 2002, it was 97% non-owner occupied cut-up Victorians.
Yeah.
And it was pretty scary. It was actually the highest crime intersection in Ogden City. And that was at 26th and Jefferson, where the Art Center is.
Yeah.
And I kept driving down that street, and there was a sign in front that had Ogden City's number, Ward Ogden, to be specific. And I called and I said, what can I do as a realtor to help develop this? And he said, well, right now we're looking for someone who will work with us. We have one of the houses that we purchased that needs to be torn down, and we need someone to volunteer to build a historic style house in its place. I said, pick me, I'll do it.
Yeah.
He said, no, this is like for real. I said, no, I'm serious. And within 24 hours, I started working on plans, started figuring out what would fit in that neighborhood. And we built it in 2000. In 2004, we broke ground January, 5th. And the Parade of Homes started June 4th.
Wow.
So the house was done, furnished, built, everything. Had incredible partners with contractors to get that done. And
you have to.
I'm still there.
Yeah.
I love Jefferson.
Yeah.
And now I think we're down to one house. There's one house in the 2700 block or the 2600 block that is multifamily that should still be single family, but everything else has been converted.
And so those conversions, so you talked about the one where you're at now, where you tore down one that couldn't be saved.
Correct.
Right. And then put something up that was period appropriate.
Right.
For the neighborhood. And that's important. But tell me about some of those, what really goes into saving it. And then the second part of the original question, why does it matter that we preserve these historic structures?
No, that's a good point. I think it matters because having historic buildings around, it's number one, I think environmentally far more friendly than the waste that comes with building new. Tearing down, wasting all of the resources, the brick, everything on the interior.
Yeah.
And I think it's far more healthy for the environment to try to restore those houses. And as we've seen in the last year and a half, people really like living in the central city, and the houses are one by one being restored and made to be more cute, and people are working on their yards, and there's a pride of ownership there that I haven't seen before. So it's pretty exciting to watch that change. And Jefferson was sort of the first, it was one of the first pieces where we really worked on changing multifamily houses back to single family. Now the Eccles Historic District, those were fortunate in that very few of those had been chopped up. So there's a few that had, but for the most part, that neighborhood was a little more intact. So those are our two major residential historic districts, and then of course 25th Street is the historic commercial district.
Yeah. And what makes a historic district, for those who are listening that may not be aware, what makes a historic district historic?
Oh, yes. So it starts with doing what they call a survey, and they go around and literally do a sort of a history of the house, where, when it was built, what redeeming historical features the house has, and how those play into preserving that neighborhood. And in the East Central, there are roughly 3,300 contributing historic houses in the National Register District.
Wow.
Now, National Register does not have the controls that a local district does, like Jefferson and Eccles.
Yeah.
And in those local districts, the homeowners do have to come before the Landmarks Commission and say, here, I'm going to change out this window because the window is falling apart, can't be rebuilt. And so everything that gets done to a historic house in a local district needs to come for permission. So yes.
And it's deemed a local district based on the historical quality.
It's a nomination, yes.
A nomination process.
It's a
review
nomination process. And the Jefferson District was literally created after my house was built because they realized that I had sort of set the bar for what the right way to do an infill house, but there was nothing that would restrict that block from having, a split entry vinyl sided duplex in the middle of the block. There was nothing that would prevent that. So right after my house was finished, they circled the wagons and got that district, those 2 blocks on the register where the streetcar tracks are today.
Okay. We're going to go ahead and take a break. We've got a lot more to cover, but again, this is Ryan Wilcox with Sue Wilkerson, and you're listening to PoliticIt.
Hi, I'm Sue Wilkerson. I'm the broker owner of Remax Crossroads. We're located in that great historic building on the corner of 24th and Monroe in Ogden. We specialize in historic real estate, but we're pretty good at finding you whatever you're looking for. It's a very tough real estate market out there. It is difficult for a seller because you really want to make sure you choose the right buyer to purchase your property. And it's tough for buyers because it's very difficult to make that transition between one house and another. We're great at it. We've had 20 years of experience selling houses, and we really enjoy what we do. So next time you have a real estate question, we're more than happy to help you out. Thanks so much.
Hey, welcome back. You're listening to Ryan Wilcox with my guest, Sue Wilkerson, on PoliticIt Podcast. Sue, one of the things you mentioned earlier, you're the co-owner of the Lighthouse Lounge, right? It's the official name. We just call it the Lighthouse forever.
Right.
We've all been through a little bit of a difficult time from a business standpoint, particularly a small business standpoint that relies on clientele. Mm-hmm. I want to just sort of get your take a little bit on, I am not the government, just for the record, right? Right. I happen to serve in state government at the moment for the last 10 months or whatever again, but, I can't say that everything has been handled appropriately on that end. I want to hear just a very frank take from you, and I know I'll always get that when I ask for it. So on what has that response been like? What's been the impact on your business? What do you think has happened? What maybe needs to change? Something.
Obviously, when COVID hit, we, like many other businesses, pretty much shut down the day after St. Patrick's Day. Mm-hmm. It was also the day of the earthquake, and many of my employees were just panicked about coming back to work in an unreinforced masonry building, which ours is. So we actually shut down a day earlier than the mandate because nobody wanted to come to work after the earthquake.
Yeah, I forgot about that being the same day.
I can't forget that earthquake. It's one of those. We didn't think that we would survive that shutdown, and I think we did get the PPP loan, and we did get the EIDL grant and the Ogden City grant. So those three pretty much carried us during those really rough times.
Shutdowns.
The complete shutdown, the complete shutdown was crazy. We chose to do a few improvement projects because when the bars shut down, we can refinish floors. Mm-hmm. We sanded and refinished tables. Right. Did a little bit of our own, elbow grease, and that was, I'm glad that we did it when we did it. Mm-hmm. It was definitely crazy when we reopened because we didn't really have a whole bunch of people that wanted to come back. And of course, I look at the numbers as of yesterday's numbers were crazy, 3,300 or some crazy case count. Yeah. And what they were when we were shut down, which was nowhere close to that, if I recall. And it's like now we're just having to learn to live with it. Yeah. It did change. We were very proactive. We installed brand new mechanical HVAC system with the blue light filters, so that we have anti-germ prevention as part of our HVAC now. That's pretty cool. And that was a pretty big investment, but I also thought it would make our clientele feel a little bit more comfortable about being there because we have these germ-killing filters, which has been great. We also stepped up our cleaning. My wonderful cleaner, Melissa, did an incredible job with all of the disinfecting. We disinfected between clients, in between, after, before. Anyway, it got to be pretty insane how much we cleaned.
Yeah.
So as things started it took us months to sort of get back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say we were just getting back to normal when Governor Herbert decided that bars needed to close at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Well, if you've been in the bar business, you know that a good portion of your money is made, especially Fridays and Saturdays after 10 o'clock at night. So whatever recovery we were trying to make, that
Immediately
just backpedal. That was one of the worst things I think that happened in all of that. That was just it wasn't a logical move in my opinion.
No, there's no magical time limit on
No,
such
there
things.
isn't.
Yeah.
And germs don't follow a time pattern. So anyway, we survived through that thanks to Ogden City and their grant program, because it really did.
Yeah.
That all of a sudden we're like, oh my gosh, there go our numbers again, and that was there to help us out. So the grants really sort of made the difference for us and kept us from going in the red, which isn't fun any way you look at it.
No.
Since then, we have continued our cleaning efforts. We have everything cleaned 7 days a week. We still have hand sanitizer at both doors. We still are very conscious of everything. We have chosen to not require our employees to be masked, and part of that is the air conditioning and heat system with those extra filters. We just haven't felt that it's been a necessary thing, and it was just so difficult for them to wear. It is difficult to wear a mask for a 6, 7, 8 hour shift. It just is really. It really is wearing on your employees.
So one of my favorite parts of this whole thing, I try to look at like what's changed for the better, and a lot has changed across the industry, right? That I really do think are permanent improvements to how we operate. And,
yeah, definitely.
We figured out ways that we can do things that we would have never considered before.
Our scanned menus.
Yeah, so things like that.
We jumped on that bandwagon. We have real menus if there's people that want a real one, but
a physical menu.
Yeah, we use the scanning.
So I mean, there's things like that are better. Delivery services have improved dramatically. I don't know if you guys participate in anything like that, but what are some of the things that you think you're far better off for having gone through this?
I think a little bit of confidence, if you will, in knowing that if we have to shut down for a day or 2 days to do a project, it's not the end of the world. I think it gave me a little bit of confidence that we'll get through this. It is really frustrating though, because there are things that change. And boy, I went to New York over Thanksgiving.
Did you?
And New York is very different from Utah. I liken Utah to the Wild Wild West when you compare how you operate in New York versus how you operate here.
Yeah.
Because if you eat inside at a restaurant or a bar or go to a Broadway show, you have to show your ID and your vaccination record. There is no exceptions. And I think that is very different from Utah. And I think it says a little bit about our culture. But it was just how people have acted, and you had to have your mask on. So, I sort of went backward in time to what it was like right after we reopened, because New York is still following those protocols. But they have, their concentration of people is so much greater than Utah.
Yeah, 8+ million people in one city.
You have a lot of crowds of people. But it was sort of an eye-opening trip. I mean, we had a great time, and everywhere you go, public transportation, you've got your mask.
Oh yeah,
it's like that's what you do.
So, and there's been a lot of stuff. One of the things that was impacted quite a bit throughout the pandemic was our local baseball team, right? Ogden Raptors.
Yes.
You and I both share a passion for that.
We do.
You have invested in a very different way than I have in the Raptors for 20 years now. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what the host program looks like and what your experience has been, why you do that?
Yes, back in 2001, I was watching Karen and Jeff Von Collin, and they hosted baseball players, and I'm like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So I volunteered to do it that next year, and haven't looked back. We went through the first year with the Brewers, and then a whole bunch of years with the Dodgers, and now we're on to the Independent League. Yeah. And it's been great. I've had some incredible guys that have stayed with us. I've also had some that I oh my gosh, every once in a while they message me and I'm like, oh my gosh, do you remember what you did? Like, anyway, there was a few problem children in that batch, but none that really made me want to not be a host family. So It's great. You're much more engaged in the games. You have tickets to be able to hand out to your friends, and for me, for clients, and at the Lighthouse, there's a lot of people that head to the Lighthouse before they go to the game, and you can walk right over to the game afterward. So it's been very rewarding. We've met some great ones. Many I'm still friends on Facebook with, and we still like each other's posts, and pretty fun.
No, there's the Raptors have been a core part of our identity since they arrived.
Yep.
Right in Ogden, and just so much fun to be able to have a minor league club here. All of this coincided. You mentioned the transition to independence. All of the COVID stuff coincided with Major League Baseball's decision to cut the minor leagues down. And all of us in the back of our minds immediately thought, what happens to the Raptors? Right? Are we going to survive this? We have to survive this.
Right. We have a baseball stadium and players.
We just put new lights up.
Yeah, right. They are very bright.
But anyway, I really appreciate all of those that have had a hand in that, and certainly our host families. We wouldn't be able to run the program. Right. It is much more than the ownership of the team or even the city. With the stadium, the things that they do. It's very much a community investment.
It is. And we're always looking for good host families.
There you go.
We're always looking.
And Sue can help you with the extra room. Okay. Well, I mentioned some of the other things that you're involved in. I do want to mention some of these and just talk about that a little bit. I mean, Friends of the Stewart Library, had no idea there.
Yes.
You're the president of that organization.
Yes. We have, and it happened sort of right as COVID was closing the door for social events. We had one great event, I think December of 2019, where we had Darren Perry come in and speak about his book, and it was
the Shoshone Nation.
It was great. Yep. And we had hoped to continue those types of presentations just to get people a little bit more in touch with certain authors and eye-opening, fun topics. And then COVID happened. So we haven't gone back to doing that, but we are in a role where we can promote and we can sponsor some of the things that are starting to open up. But it's to keep not only the historic part of the library, which is near and dear to my heart because it's got incredible archives with so many great pictures and
I probably
documents.
should have mentioned this earlier when I mentioned the Stewart Library, but for those that don't know, I happen to wear one of my Weaver State jackets today. But it's our research library at Weaver State University. So it's our main library, and so it hosts basically the archives for our community going back forever, right?
Yep.
As far as we have them.
Yeah, they're always looking for new collections. They're always looking for new things to add to it. So if you run across a pile of pictures from your great-grandfather, please reach out to Stewart Library. They'd be happy to have them.
Well, that's such an important part of our history, and preserving that and communicating that. I think probably my favorite Facebook pages, you mentioned social media, are the Ogden, Utah Glory Days ones.
Yes.
Right? Or the Stewart Library ones when they come out and
or Weber Heritage Foundation.
Weber Heritage is and for that same thing, we have such a cool history here in Ogden that
we do.
I sort of love the rebellious child image that we've had over the past, but it really is just a beautiful thing, and it's so important that we remember where we come from and are able to preserve and build on that for future generations.
Right. That's preserving the historic.
Yes. And
I'm
telling you, Ogden has a funny reputation sometimes when you're talking to people from other parts of the state. They just don't know Ogden.
No.
Right? When they show up, They're like, this is nothing like what I was told.
Right.
This is awesome. Like, yeah.
Out-of-state people have much more appreciation for Ogden.
They
than
do.
those from Layton or Kaysville or Bountiful or Salt Lake.
Oh, this is so funny and totally inappropriate for this podcast, so I'm going to say it anyway. But I married a girl from Bountiful, okay? And we had our reception in Bountiful. Kevin's over there laughing, watching this. I married a girl from Bountiful. We're at the reception, and up on the hill, super fancy chapel up there, and I got warned almost a dozen times in the line. Like, and they asked the question, oh, where are you guys living? Oh, we both go to Weaver State, so we'll be living in an apartment close to campus. And they turned to me, you take care of that girl.
Oh my gosh.
Where are you living? You take care of that girl. How dare you? Kind of, and they were totally serious. I was risking her life by living here. And
that's great.
I love that it couldn't be further from the truth. I've loved the days when nobody else knew it, that it was awesome, and they just sort of stayed away. It's really hard to buy houses.
But it's fun to share it. It's fun to share it.
But it's sure fun to be here. And we talked about the Stewart Library, the Eccles Arts Center. You're also serving on the board there. Aren't you the incoming president there as well?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so there's a running theme here as we talk to Sue.
Did I say yes too much?
Well, yeah, I have that problem too a lot. But preserving art, culture, history are clearly passions of yours.
Yes.
And I don't even know, like you mentioned that you weren't originally from Ogden. Where are you from?
I am from Boulder Creek, California. It's a little town in the Santa Cruz Mountains. My parents are still alive and living happily in the very same house that they built in 1959. Awesome. Yeah. So,
like I said, I have no idea what brought you here, but I am so grateful that you came and that you've invested so much in our community. So, genuinely, thank you, Sue, for all of that. And I can't even go down the list, you guys. Like it's too many things. So, Christmas Box, Junior League, Youth Impact, Youth Futures. I didn't get them all. Yeah. So. Anyway, again, this is Ryan Wilcox. I guess probably the theme for me today, after having this conversation with Sue, is the importance of investing in your community, right?
I think that's very important. I agree.
Yeah. And as we wrap up, this will be the last podcast that we record for this year, for 2021. We head into 2022. It's probably a good one to think about. What I want to do and what we all want to do in the new year. So I guess the invitation today is to think about that. What difference can you make? A girl moving in from California to a strange city in Utah, of all places. The impact that you've had over the last 20 plus years here is not insignificant, and it really makes a difference to us long term. And I just love you and appreciate your commitment to Ogden.
Thanks. So, no, I definitely love Ogden.
Anything you'd like us to leave with?
No, I think it's important to say yes. Yes to the things that you're passionate about. Yes to getting involved, because it does make a better community when more people say yes.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I'll help out with that. Yes, I'll donate that or this. And I think it gives you a lot of connections, and that is important.
It's no is important too, right?
Right.
And yes is hard. Yes, it's hard sometimes, right? Because these are not easy things that we've done, but they're impactful and they matter. So thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Hey, and this is Ryan Wilcox signing off. This has been the PoliticIt Podcast with Sue Wilkerson. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.